Welcome back to the Midweek Update.
Hey Mepham, welcome to this week's episode of Midweek Update.
Today, let's talk about Mepham alumni John Morris and his plan to Zoom with Mepham students and athletes, and Charles Leschinski defines the term mail-in voting.
This and more as we take a look at what's going on this week on Midweek Update. I'm Lily Yepez.
And I'm Riley Freed, and welcome back to the Midweek Update, the B&B show that brings you closer to the people and places in and around the Mepham community.
So Riley, what I missed last week?
Well, we covered a lot, like our grade being able to go out for lunch and sports intramurals starting up.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited about that. It'll be nice for Mepham fall athletes to be able to play again.
Definitely. Let's see if Connor Ward has any new news in the world of Mepham sports.
Thanks, Riley. And the big news in the world of Mepham sports is that there are athletes on the field. Monday, fall athletes for all Mepham teams found their way onto the fields. After a temperature check and a lengthy check-in process, our fall athletes got a little taste of what they've been missing. For those of you more interested in watching sports, be sure to check out B&B's Primetime Fantasy Report Episode 2, which drops today. That's the world of sports. Now back to you, Haley.
Thanks, Connor. It's great that sports have been able to restart. They're an important part of the lives of athletes and of the Mepham community.
Yeah, but sports aren't the only important Mepham activity that have been trying to restart.
For sure. The arts are another important part of the Mepham community. I know this story debuted on B&B's Talking Cookies, but it's a pretty important topic.
I agree. For those of you that haven't seen it, B&B's Michele Spiller got an inside look at the arts here at Mepham and how students and teachers have adapted to make them work during these circumstances.
The pandemic has created issues with all classes inside the school, but for teachers of the arts, COVID-19 has created unique problems with not only classes, but events as well.
Pretty much like everything else, we're going to take it day by day and see what happens. As of right now, all of our concerts are still scheduled. I would absolutely love to have a concert. I don't know if it's going to be the safest option for us to end up performing at a concert. However, we will do our best to find ways to perform, whether it be virtually or if we can get a group outside.
So right now they're at a standstill. Much like the sports, we're not going to have anything set in stone for planning them. The understanding that I have is that we're going to see where we stand in a case to case, not case to case, but let some time pass and reassess as we see fit. That's my understanding.
Even with events like concerts and plays still in the air, students in these classes and clubs have adapted to a COVID-19 world where things in which they previously did went against all guidelines.
Band is interesting because we're in the auditorium, so we could social distance because it's a really big class. And so far we haven't gotten our instruments, but we've been doing band-related things, and we made slideshows about ourselves to learn more about each other, and we have a new teacher with us, Mr. Oppenheimer. So we're just trying to get to know him too. And we talk a lot about our favorite music, our go-to songs, and stuff like that.
Instead of being in our choir room, we are in the auditorium, at least 6 feet apart with masks on. But we have plans to go outside eventually, I don't know when, but go outside, be socially distant without masks so we could sing.
Thanks to the flexibility of teachers, music classes are shaping up to be just as fun and educational as they were in years previous, giving hope to adaptations that could be made for future events.
So there are music standards that, teachers strive for. So it's performance, creating, responding, and connecting. Because of those concerts that we have, so many of the time music teachers focus so much on that performance aspect, myself included, because we have this goal. It's the big performance that we are working up to. Sometimes create, connect, and respond get kind of pushed under the table a little bit. So I'm taking this experience as a chance to push up those other three standards. So lots of listening activities. Thursdays and Fridays, I'm going to have my kids listening to records on my record player in the auditorium, taking out their listening journals and just responding. Something that we totally would not have time to do under regular circumstances, but I think it's going to be an amazing experience that we would have never normally had time for.
Despite challenges for this year, students and teachers are excited to be back in school learning, even if culture events are on or not. For B&B, I'm Michele Spiller.
Thanks, Michele. I hope the arts can also begin to resume still, even if it's in a modified format like sports.
Yeah, it's really important for the students to be involved. To hear more about this and to see the exclusive interview with Skull and Bones director Mr. Grosskreutz, make sure to check out this week's Talkin' Cookies.
I like the self-promotion, Riley.
Well, then you'll like this next story too. In last week's episode of Sports Talk, Tom and Lily introduced us to former Mepham Major League Baseball athlete, John Morris.
See what a good outfielder Morris is. He went to the wall, and then he came back. Boy, he's a good player.
My junior year, we were playing in the Nassau County playoffs and the baseball field in the back there at Mepham. And we were playing East Meadow, and Frank Viola, who went on to pitch 15 years in the big leagues, who's a good friend of mine, him and I hooked up in the first round of the county playoffs, and there were several thousand people there.
From the backfields of Mepham High School to center field for the St. Louis Cardinals, John Morris's journey has taken him far from the halls of Mepham, where his picture hangs in the case outside the attendance office.
I graduated in 1979. I loved the academic experience I had there. I had great teachers, but I really enjoyed playing baseball and soccer. They were great experiences for me in terms of teaching team building and learning how to compete on a daily basis. So I'm really grateful for the overall experience I had. I had great friends, great teachers, great classmates.
The journey to the pitcher's mound from here in Bellmore to center field in the World Series took many twists and turns. Morris started playing center field at Seton Hall University, where he blossomed as a ball player to the highly competitive Cape Cod League.
And the beginning was very difficult. I realized after a couple of weeks that the players really weren't any better than me. And 6 weeks later, I wound up being the MVP of the league. And in my mind, I figured it out that, I'm as good as these guys. And that really catapulted me as far as the following year was concerned, knowing that I could play professionally.
John Morris was named Cape Cod League MVP in 1981 with 2 home runs, 37 runs batted in, and a .410 batting average. Then in 1982, the majors came calling when the Kansas City Royals made him the 10th overall pick in the first round in the amateur draft.
Yeah, it was really awesome. Playing in the 1987 World Series, I made the last out of Game 6, and that's one of the few negative moments I have about my playing career. It's hard to erase that. But to get as far as we did that year, we won the National League Eastern Division. We beat the New York Mets in a very close race. We beat the San Francisco Giants for the National League Championship, and we went to 7 games in the World Series. So great experience, wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm very proud of the fact that we had 4 players in the 1987 World Series that were from Long Island, 3 that were neighbors of mine. Myself from North Bellmore, Gene Larkin from North Bellmore, who went to Chaminade High School. He lived 3 blocks from me. He lived on Bellmore Road. And Frank Viola lived in East Meadow. And we had a 4th player out from Suffolk County, Sal Butera. So 4 guys that played in the 87 World Series. That's the first thing I tell everybody about how cool that was.
Once his playing career was done, Morris returned to school to fulfill a promise he made to his mother.
So I got to play professionally until I was 32. And then from there, I went back and got my degree at Seton Hall University. And I finished that up as a promise I made to my mom.
Then it was on to coaching and managing and eventually scouting and a job in the Reds front office, where today John Morris works as a special assistant to the general manager. And later this year, he'll be inducted into the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame. After all of that, what advice does he have for young people today?
It's really important to have an understanding of of what it is to compete and what it takes to be successful at whatever it is you choose to do, but also learn how to deal with failure. Because a lot of the things that we aspire to be good at, unfortunately, we have to deal with obstacles, detours, roadblocks, setbacks along the way. And it's almost like we need to have a short memory. In that we're going to experience obstacles, but we need to be able to get over them quickly so that we don't get bogged down in the setbacks and the negativity, and that we can just plow our way through.
For BMB, I'm Tom Mauro.
That was Sports Talk's newest segment, Faces in the Cases. It was cool to see John Morris's progression from Mepham to the Major League.
And joining us now from the set of her new show, one of the new hosts of B&B Sports Talk, it's Lily Yepez. Welcome, Lily.
Thanks. It's nice to be here with you guys.
So, Lily, what's it like to be co-hosting your own show here on B&B?
It's really cool to have our own show with the host, Tom Mauro, because as a freshman, I saw Rocco and Casey have this sports show where they knew everything that's going on, so I would never think that I'd be in their shoes. So it's really exciting to see that I'm hosting it now with Tom and that we have so much time in the future, so we'll see what that has for us.
Could you tell us a little bit about this new feature Faces in the Cases?
Yes, so Faces in the Cases is pretty much Tom and I covering the athletes that made it big time in the cases by the big gym. So this week we interviewed John Morris, who was a Major League Baseball player who attended Mepham. So we're pretty much just interviewing athletes who made it big from Mepham.
And what did you get to learn from talking to John Morris? Why should people join you and Tom on the Zoom with him later this month?
John Morris, he was a baseball player for the MLB, so he has a lot of experience on what it's like to be under pressure and be on a big stage. And he gave a lot of really good information about your mental game and just your mental state in general under pressure. So I think that as a student, most people can relate to him, and I think that he has a lot to say that people can take away from.
Well, thanks for joining us here on Midweek Update, Lily, and good luck with the new show.
And if you're a Mepham student or athlete and want to hear more from John Morris, or if you want to ask him some questions of your own, you can sign up to join the Zoom call by filling out the form on the B&B website below.
Stay tuned to B&B shows like Midweek Update, the morning announcements, and Sports Talk to make sure you don't miss the date of this call, which we'll announce as soon as it's finalized.
That sounds like it'll be a great experience. Well, Lily, thanks for joining us this week on the show.
It was fun to get a new face on Midweek Update, but now let's go to an increasingly familiar face on the show, Charles Leschinski. This week on Decision Definitions, he's going to be defining mail-in voting.
Election Day 2020 is on November 3rd, and as teenagers, we're being bombarded with tweets, Instagram posts, TikToks, and Facebook posts. But we're teenagers, so we're not on Facebook. But they're out there, and they're all about the election. With all those social media posts, there is a lot of misinformation out there. We're not here to correct the misinformation on BMB's decision definitions. We're just going to try to explain some of the terms that you're seeing and hearing. If you want to learn what the candidates think about these things, the candidates have websites full of information. We're just going to explain the terms.
Today's term, vote by mail. Historically, citizens have been able to vote by mail since the Civil War, when troops stationed far from home wanted to be able to vote in the presidential election of 1864. There are two types of ways people can vote by mail. In every state, Americans unable to get to the polls can request an absentee ballot, and now at least 30 states have what's called no-excuse absentee ballots, where voters can request a ballot be sent to their home that they will then mail back. In 2000, the state of Oregon switched to an all-mail-in ballot system where every registered voter is sent a ballot that they need to return. Since then, 6 other western states, in addition to New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Washington, D.C. on the East Coast, have added voting by mail as an option for their citizens, where all registered voters are mailed a ballot that can be mailed or returned to the Board of Elections. Before 2020, there were a limited number of states that sent out ballots. However, due to the coronavirus, an expanded number of states will send you a ballot or application, and most states let you vote by mail without needing a reason. So that's voting by mail. Like everything else in America, there are lots of options and attitudes towards voting by mail. To learn more about those, you'll have to do some research on your own. For Decision Definitions, I'm Charles Leschinski.
Thanks, Charles. The election is coming up soon, so it's good for all of us to stay informed.
Definitely. Be sure to catch us next week to hear the new term that Charles will go over.
Well, that's it for this week's Midweek Update. We'll be back next week with all new stories from around the BMCHSD to bring you inside the parts of the community we don't always get to see.
Until then, I'm Lily Yepez.
And I'm Riley Freed, and we'll see you all next Midweek.